Hello, my name is Noah Finkelstein, and I will be presenting the real MVP in the NBA. What is player value? First, we'll talk about the MVP. The MVP, or Most Valuable Player, is an award in the NBA that typically goes to the highest performing player in terms of statistics. Player value is a term I'm using to describe the worth of a player to his team relative to the cost of his team. I've created a formula to measure the player value of NBA players for the 2019-2020 regular season. However, only players greater than 250 minutes are considered in the formula. What is the player value formula? Player value is equal to player production divided by player salary. Player production is the total of a given player's scoring production, assist production, rebound production, defensive production, and turnover production. Player salary is simply the player's annual salary. The most important variable in the player production formula is scoring production. Scoring production has two components: total points scored, which includes both field goals and free throws, and scoring efficiency, which is how efficiently the player shoots from both the field and the free throw line. Total points scored is simply the sum of points scored by a player, and efficiency is a measurement of the player's success rate from shooting, which is calculated by made shots divided by attempted shots. The reason that efficiency is incorporated into the formula is that a player who scores 10 points on only 5 attempted shots is more valuable than a player who scores 10 points on 10 attempted shots. Quantifying efficiency. Based on the previous example, quantifying efficiency is a way to reward or punish a player based on how efficiently the player scores. The formula used will compare a player's efficiency to the league average efficiency. So there are two formulas, one for field goals and one for free throws. So the field goal efficiency differential is equal to a player's field goal percentage subtracted by the league average field goal percentage divided by the league average field goal percentage. If we assume a player shoots 53% from the field and the league average was 46% from the 2019-2020 NBA regular season, we can calculate a value of about 15 hundredths or 15%. There's a similar process for free throw efficiency, and the league average free throw percentage was 77.3% or 0.773. And if we assume a player shot 70% from the free throw line, we can calculate a value of about negative 0.094. Note that this number of 15 hundredths is positive because the player shot better than the league average, so he's rewarded. However, for free throws, this player shot worse than the league average, so he was punished by using a negative number. Field goal production and free throw production. These two values are added up to determine the scoring production value of the player. The field goal production of a player is equal to the total field goal points multiplied by 4 plus 4 times the field goal efficiency differential percentage. The reason that 4 is multiplied to the efficiency differential percentage is to dilate the values and expand them on a greater scale. So if we use our 15% from the previous slide and input that into the formula, we can also assume a player scored 1,000 points. We can calculate about 4,600. If we do the same for free throw production, very similar process again. However, this time we're going to use free throw efficiency differential from the last slide, which was about negative 0.094. And we can assume that a player scored 125 free throws. We get a value of about 453. Notice that there's a weighting of 4 on total field goal points and total free throw points. That's because points are deemed more valuable than all the other statistics that we'll look into a little later. As discussed earlier, scoring production is equal to field goal production plus free throw production. Using the values from the previous slide, we get a scoring production of 5,053. Scoring production combines a player's points scored with the player's efficiency in scoring those points. The leading players for scoring production in the 2019-2020 season was James Harden with a scoring production of 9,441, Giannis Antetokounmpo with a scoring production of 8,320, and Damian Lillard with a scoring production of 8,225. The next component in the player production formula is assist production. Assist production credits a given player for producing assists. The assist production formula is assist production is equal to total assists times 3. Notice that there's a weighting of 3 on the assists compared to the weighting of 4 on total points discussed earlier. That's because I deemed points 33% more valuable than assists. That came from the math 4 minus 3 divided by 3 is equal to 33%. If we assume a player has 150 assists, we can use that in the formula to get an assist production of 450. The leading player for assist production in the 2019-2020 season was LeBron James with 2,052. The following player was Ricky Rubio with 1,710. The next component is rebound production. Rebound production credits a given player for both offensive and defensive rebounds. Rebound production equals 2 times offensive rebounds plus 1.5 times defensive rebounds. The reason that I deemed offensive rebounds more valuable than defensive rebounds is because offensive rebounds are harder to get, and they often result in close shot attempts and scores, while defensive rebounds do not always result in scoring. So if we assume a player has 50 offensive rebounds and 280 defensive rebounds, we get a rebound production of 520. The leading player for rebound production in the 2019-2020 NBA season was Rudy Gobert with a rebound production of 1,489. Following him was Hassan Whiteside with a rebound production of 1,487. On the other side of the ball, defensive production. Defensive production is used to measure the contribution and production of a given player on defense. Defensive production is equal to 2 times total steals plus total blocks plus 200 times DWS, or defensive win shares. We'll come back to defensive win shares in a moment. As you can see, steals are more valuable than blocks. This is because a steal always results in the gaining of possession for your team, while a block does not. Now I'll explain defensive win shares. Defensive win shares is a stat published by the NBA for each player. Defensive win shares measures what statistics cannot: on-ball defense. The leading player for defensive win shares is Giannis Antetokounmpo with a value of 5. When multiplied by 200, the number is 1,000. I've created a 1,000-point scale to fit the relative weightings of my formula. If we substitute 50 total steals, 30 total blocks, and a defensive win share of 1.5 into the formula, we get a defensive production of 430. The leading player for defensive production was Anthony Davis with a value of 1,205, followed by Giannis Antetokounmpo with a value of 1,188. The final variable in the player production formula is turnover production. Turnover production is used to reward players with less turnovers. This variable is unique because it's subtracted from the other variables. The turnover production is equal to turnovers multiplied by 2. The same weighting on turnovers exists on steals. This is because a steal gains possession for your team, while a turnover loses possession for your team, making them opposites. If we assume a player has 80 turnovers, we can calculate their turnover production of 160. James Harden had a leading turnover production of 616, followed by Trae Young with a turnover production of 578. Highly active offensive players will tend to have high turnover amounts because they often have the ball in their hands. Player production. Now that we have all of the variables, we can add them together to get player production. This measures the overall production of the players. When we use our example numbers, we get a player production of 6,293. James Harden had a leading player production of 12,015, followed by Giannis Antetokounmpo with 11,464, LeBron James with 10,357. Out of the top 24 players selected into the All-Star game, 18 of them placed in the top 24 in my player production rankings. Using player production, we can calculate player value. Player value incorporates both the production and salary of a player to measure his value. Player value is equal to 100,000 multiplied by player production divided by player annual salary. The use of 100,000 is to create a more friendly number because the number from inside the parentheses is a small decimal. 100,000 times 6,293 of our player production from previous slide divided by a salary of $10 million is equal to 62.93, or about 63. This value indicates the production point per dollar is 0.0006293. The real MVP. You may assume players such as LeBron James, James Harden, and Anthony Davis may rank at the top of the list for player value. However, that's not the case. Lou Gents Dort, with a player value of 810, is the number one ranked player because of his small salary yet high production. So now the question arises, are the top players being overpaid? Well, Harden's salary was almost 246 times greater than Dort's. However, his player production was only about 9.5 times greater. This concept continues throughout the data, leaving top players, quote, overpaid. LeBron James, who you expect to be the number one player, actually ranks 312th in the player value rankings. Why are these top players being overpaid? Well, there's other outside factors that contribute to this, which are discussed in the paper. However, if LeBron James provides 100 production points in one game, 10 less expensive players could each produce 10 points, but there's only 5 of them on the court at once, which means you would need players like LeBron on the court. So this may apply to star players. However, general managers should be considering the player value for the rest of their roster. With statistics and analytics growing each year, the sports world will enter a new era. The definition of a, quote, better player will change when building a team in all of sports. Thank you for listening to my presentation, and I hope you enjoyed.